Yet, that single drink would ripple through time and redefine justice for the entire world. Who would have thought that a snail could give birth to the principle of duty of care? Can a manufacturer be held responsible to someone they never contracted with? Where does responsibility truly begin and where does it end? This is the story of Donahue versus Stevenson, a landmark case decided in 1932 by the House of Lords in England, a case that laid the foundation of the modern law of tort. But this is more than a story about a snail. It is a story about duty, responsibility, and ultimately breach of duty. Because in tort law, it is not enough that a duty exists. The law demands proof that the duty was broken. Today, we examine how a single act of negligence gave rise to the principle of duty of care and how its breach continues to shape justice across the world.
Yet, the central question in this case was not merely about the presence of a snail in a bottle. The court was faced with a far more profound legal issue: whether the harm suffered by Mrs. Donahue was reasonably foreseeable. In other words, should a prudent manufacturer have anticipated that negligence in the production process could result in injury to the ultimate consumer? Negligence in law requires three elements: a duty of care, a breach of that duty, and that damage caused as a result.
This is the essence of the concept of breach of duty. A breach occurs when someone fails to act reasonable person were in the same circumstance. In this case, the court need to determine whether Stevenson had failed to meet that standard. As the law states, a person is only liable if the harm was reasonably foreseeable. A manufacturer produces a good for public consumption. Therefore, if the product is contaminated, harm to the consumer is not only possible, it's foreseeable.
That day, I went to the William Cafe with my friend.
It's a hot day, man.
Yeah.
Let me get you a drink.
A ginger beer perhaps?
Oh, that sounds lovely. Thank you. Let's go.
Oh.
Here it is. Hello, sir. Thank you.
It's really refreshing. Thank you. I really need this.
Oh my god! Oh my god, is that a snail? It's feel like decomposed. It's disgusting.
Who will ever expect a snail inside a bottle of beer?
Wait, what happened? Oh my god, what's this? Oh my god!
I trusted that product. I never thought that drinking a simple ginger beer would lead to such a traumatic experience. And I was diagnosed with gastroenteritis and suffered severe shock. And I thought, someone has to be responsible for this. The bottle was opaque, so we had no way of inspecting its contents. If there was any danger, only the manufacturer was in a position to prevent it.
After the incident at the cafe, the big question remains: how did a snail end up in a sealed bottle? Our investigation leads us to the manufacturing process of Mr. Stevenson's ginger beer. I did not foresee that my product would cause injury to anyone.
Mr. Stevenson, what was the main defense put forward by your side in this case?
Thank you. My principal defense was that there was no contractual relationship between myself and Mrs. Donahue. As a manufacturer, I had a contract only with the retailer, not with the final consumer.
So, even though Mrs. Donahue was the one who consumed the drink?
Yes, under contract law, only parties to a contract are entitled to sue. Mrs. Donahue did not purchase the drink and never entered into any agreement with me.
Are you therefore saying that you owe no responsibility?
Absolutely. In the absence of a contract, no duty of care was recognized by the law at that time. The law then did not impose an obligation on manufacturers towards end consumers.
Okay, what about the injury suffered by her?
It's unfortunate, but from a legal perspective, without privity of contract, she had no right to bring an action against me. Any claim should have been made against the party who sold the drink.
The defendant argued that there was no privity of contract between the manufacturer and the plaintiff, and therefore no duty of care was owed. Look at this bottle. It's dark and opaque. This is a crucial piece of evidence because the consumer cannot see through it. The manufacturer, Mr. Stevenson, has an even higher responsibility to ensure nothing harmful is inside before the seal.
The issue is not what the defendant personally foresaw, but what a reasonable manufacturer ought to have foreseen. A reasonable manufacturer would foresee the contaminated drinks could harm the consumer.
Counsel, on what basis do you say that the harm to the plaintiff was foreseeable?
The harm was foreseeable because the ginger beer was manufactured specifically for consumption. If reasonable care is not taken during production, it is entirely foreseeable that contamination may occur, causing illness to the consumer.
Okay, how does the opaque bottle strengthen your argument?
The opaque bottle is crucial. It prevents the consumer from inspecting the contents before drinking. As a result, the consumer is forced to rely entirely on the manufacturer to ensure the product is safe.
Okay, so you are saying that the manufacturer should have anticipated this risk?
Yes, the manufacturer knew or ought to have known that the product will reach the ultimate consumer without any possibility of intermediate examination. Therefore, any failure in the manufacturing process will directly affect the consumer.
Okay, Counsel, what is the legal consequence of that foreseeability?
The consequences is clear, where the harm is reasonably foreseeable and the consumer is dependent on the manufacturer. The manufacturer owes a duty of care to the customer.
Foreseeability alone was not enough, so the court went further to define who the law protects.
This case introduced what is now known as the neighbor principle. A person must take reasonable care to avoid act or omission which he can reasonably foresee would be likely to injure his neighbor. In law, a neighbor is not limited to someone living nearby, but anyone who may be directly affected by one's action. In this case, the consumer was clearly manufacturer's neighbor.
The court held that the injury to the Mrs. Donahue was reasonably foreseeable. As a result, the element of foreseeability was satisfied and a duty of care existed.
By a majority of 3 to 2, the House of Lords held that Mrs. Stevenson owned a duty of care to Mrs. Donahue. The absence of the contract did not remove liability. The manufacturer was responsible for ensuring the safety of his product. In conclusion, the element of negligence was satisfied. A duty of care existed. The duty was branches, and foreseeable damage was suffered. Therefore, the thought of negligence was established.
With this decision, the House of Lords reshaped the law of negligence forever.